Today we are setting sail on a journey that, well, it starts with a history lesson you probably think you already know by heart. We're talking about the most famous ship in history.
The Titanic.
The one and only. Now, when you picture the Titanic going down, what's the image that comes to mind?
It's the iceberg, right? The massive looming white shape out of the darkness.
Exactly. It's the lookout screaming, the frantic attempt to turn the ship, and then that awful scraping sound.
And that's it. Game over. That's the story we've all been told.
It is. It's the cultural narrative. I mean, it's the story James Cameron gave us. It's the story the newspapers ran in 1912.
And it frames the whole disaster as this epic battle, you know? Man versus nature, the unsinkable ship versus the immovable object.
It's all about external forces. It's bad luck, a moonless night, maybe a reckless captain pushing the speed.
We blame the iceberg.
We always blame the iceberg. But, and this is where we really start our journey today, decades later, when scientists and engineers actually got down there and analyzed the wreckage, they found a different story.
A different culprit.
A completely different one. It wasn't just the iceberg. It was the rivets.
The rivets? You mean the little metal pins holding the whole thing together?
The actual pins holding the steel plates of the hull together. See, the builders of the Titanic, they used top-of-the-line steel rivets for the central part of the ship. No expense spared.
Okay, that makes sense.
But for the bow and the stern, the big machines that install those rivets, well, they couldn't fit.
So they had to do it manually.
They had to do it by hand.
Yeah.
And hammering steel rivets by hand is incredibly difficult. So they made a decision. They switched to iron rivets.
Iron, which is softer, easier to work with.
Much easier. But the iron they used, it wasn't pure. It had this high concentration of something called slag, impurities.
So it was brittle.
Super brittle. So when the ship just grazed that iceberg, the steel plates didn't actually tear open like you'd think. The impact just popped the rivets.
They just sheared off.
Like buttons on a shirt. The hull essentially unzipped at the seams because the fasteners were weak.
Wow. That changes everything.
It really does.
Because if those rivets had been high-quality steel, the ship might have buckled, maybe taken on a bit of water, but might have stayed afloat.
It might have bought them enough time for the rescue ship, the Carpathia, to arrive. So it wasn't just the blow from the outside. It was the structural integrity on the inside that failed.
And that is a perfect metaphor.
It's the central metaphor of the book we are diving into today, Energize Your Mind by Gaur Gopal. The premise is so simple, but it's profound. Life is the ocean.
And problems are the icebergs. You can't drain the ocean, and you can't melt all the icebergs.
Lord knows we try, though.
Oh, we definitely try. We spend most of our lives trying to control everything external, the bad boss, the traffic, the economy, you name it.
But Das argues that the water only sinks the ship if it gets inside. And it only gets inside if our internal construction, our mental hull, is compromised.
If our rivets are brittle.
Precisely. So the mission of this book and our deep dive today is to stop staring at the iceberg for a minute and go down into the engine room to inspect the rivets.
And we couldn't ask for a better guide for that. Gaur Gopal, his background is, it's not what you'd expect.
Not at all. It's a bit of a paradox, really. He didn't start out as a monk in an ashram.
No, he started as an electrical engineer.
At Hewlett-Packard, of all places. So he comes from this world of logic, circuits, systems.
Where every problem has a definitive, logical solution. A world of ones and zeros.
Exactly. He was climbing the corporate ladder, doing the whole 9 to 5, or probably more like 9 to 9. And then he just makes this massive pivot.
He leaves it all behind.
He leaves it all. Goes to become a monk in a Mumbai ashram, where he's lived now for over 2 decades.
Yeah.
So when you read this book, you're not just getting these, vague spiritual sayings.
No, you're getting an engineer's manual for the human spirit.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, it's that combination, isn't it? Pure spirituality can sometimes feel a bit abstract, disconnected from the grit of daily life.
For sure.
And pure engineering can feel cold and mechanical. But when you bridge the two, you start looking at the mind as a system that can be optimized, debugged, and reinforced.
And that's our goal today. We're going to look at the blueprints he provides. We're going to figure out how to navigate life's storms without letting all that water in.
Where do we start?
We'll start by understanding the self, what he calls the feel, deal, heal framework. Then we'll move on to managing the noise of the mind, and finally, how to handle the really heavy cargo anxiety, guilt, and toxic people.
All right, let's start with the basics then. The hull itself, the construction of the self.
And to do that, we have to talk about Sophia.
Sophia. the Greek concept of wisdom.
Nope, not that one. We are talking about Sophia the robot.
Oh, the humanoid. The one that was all over the news a few years back.
That's the one. So Das tells this hilarious story. He's a keynote speaker at this massive tech conference in Singapore. He's backstage, feeling pretty good. He's the wise monk, ready to go on stage.
And then what?
And then he hears the crowd chanting, but they aren't chanting his name. They're screaming, Sophia! Sophia!
Ouch. That's got to be a little humbling, being upstaged by a machine.
He's totally baffled. He thinks maybe Sophia is some pop star he's never heard of. So he goes to the green room to try and introduce himself, and there's this huge security guard outside the door. He asks if he can see Sophia, and the guard says, and this is my favorite line, she can't speak right now, she's not plugged in.
Not plugged in. You don't hear that excuse every day.
Das thinks it's some kind of slang. He's wondering if unplugged means she's meditating or taking a nap.
Right.
And then two guys walk out carrying this life-size humanoid robot. It clicks. Sophia is an AI. And when they get her on stage, she's Aya. She's incredible, answering complex questions, making jokes.
She gave a whole speech, didn't she? About how AI won't replace humans, but complement them.
She did. The crowd went absolutely wild for her.
It's impressive tech, for sure. But I imagine for a monk, looking at that robot raises some pretty fundamental questions about what it even means to be human.
That is the entire crux of it. Das points out that Sophia can simulate something like 50 different facial expressions. She's programmed to show pleasure, pain, rejection, surprise.
But that's the key word, isn't it? Show.
Exactly. Here's the engineering problem, as he puts it. She is static. She processes data, but she doesn't feel any of it. There is no internal experience whatsoever.
And we are dynamic. That's the critical distinction. We're sentient beings. When we smile, it's usually because we actually feel joy. When we cry, we're experiencing real distress.
We're not just displaying data on a screen, we're living it. But here's the problem, and this is where I think Das is so insightful. Society often trains us to act like Sophia.
To be humanoids.
To be humanoids. Think about all the messages we get from childhood.
Stiff upper lip. Boys don't cry.
Leave your personal life at the door. Don't be so emotional. We're taught to repress the entire processing unit. We try to be these efficient, unfeeling machines because we think that's what strength is.
Which is just a recipe for disaster. I mean, in engineering terms, if you treat a dynamic system one with fluctuating pressure and heat as if it were a static system, you don't get efficiency.
What do you get?
You get an explosion.
Yeah.
You can't just cap a volcano and hope the lava magically disappears.
Right. The pressure just builds up behind those brittle iron rivets. So if we accept that we're not robots, we have to learn how to handle these messy, complicated things called emotions.
Which brings us to his framework.
His feel, deal, heal framework.
I like a good framework. But let's unpack this, because feel, deal, heal could easily sound like, a cheesy bumper sticker. What's the real substance behind the first step, feel?
Feel is all about labeling. And it turns out most of us are. Well, we're functionally illiterate when it comes to our own emotions. We have a very, very limited vocabulary.
We just use umbrella terms.
Constantly. We say, I'm stressed. Stressed is the default answer for everything in modern life.
But what does that even mean? Are you stressed?
Yeah.
Or are you disappointed because your project failed? Are you feeling betrayed because a colleague took credit for your work? Are you lonely? Are you envious?
Exactly. And this lines up perfectly with the work of psychologist Dr. Susan David, who Das references. She calls it emotional agility. The specific label is critical because the solution completely depends on the diagnosis.
Right. If I tell myself I'm stressed when I'm actually sad, I might try to solve it by just working harder or organizing my calendar.
Which is completely the wrong medicine.
It's like going to the doctor and just saying, I'm in pain.
Yes. Is it a broken leg or is it a migraine? You need that granularity. If you can sit with the feeling long enough to realize, oh, I'm not stressed, I'm actually envious, that requires a totally different internal conversation than if you're just overworked.
Okay, so that's step one. Feel it. Label it correctly. So we've labeled it. We know it's grief or frustration, not just stress. What's step two?
Step two is deal. This is about taking action. And Das uses this fantastic, kind of ridiculous anecdote to explain how not to do it. It involves an engineering student and a mosquito net.
I'm already intrigued.
So this student in Mumbai has a hole in his mosquito net. Simple problem. He's getting bitten alive every single night.
And the logical solution, the engineering solution, would be to, what? Sew the hole. Patch it with tape.
Or, buy a new net. They're not that expensive.
Simple enough.
But this student decides to use Jugaad. Now, for our listeners who aren't familiar, Jugaad is a Hindi term. It basically means a hack or a clever, makeshift, innovative solution.
It's usually about using limited resources to solve a problem. But sometimes.
Sometimes it's just completely absurd. I've seen some Jugaad car repairs that are both brilliant and terrifying at the same time.
I know exactly what you mean. So what did this student do?
He decides that instead of closing the hole, he's going to widen it.
Widen it.
Then he cuts another hole on the opposite side of the net, and he runs a garden hose through the net, connecting the two holes he just made.
Wait, a garden hose? Through his mosquito net? Why?
His logic, his completely twisted engineering logic, was that the mosquitoes would fly into the hose, get confused by the long, dark tunnel, and just fly straight out the other side without stopping to bite him.
That is unbelievably creative and 100% useless.
Laughs. Completely useless. The mosquitoes just flew around the hose and bit him anyway. But Dus uses this story to show how we often deal with our emotions. We use garden hoses.
We create these elaborate distractions or these mechanisms that don't actually address the breach in the net.
Exactly. We binge watch a show for 6 hours straight, that's the garden hose, to avoid feeling the loneliness, which is the hole. We work 80-hour weeks to avoid dealing with a failing marriage.
We construct these complex Jugaad solutions, but the mosquitoes, the actual problems, are still getting in.
So dealing means actually patching the net. And Dus is clear. You have to identify the problem correctly to apply the right solution. Sometimes dealing means seeking professional help because the hole is too big to sew yourself.
Sometimes it's having a difficult conversation you've been putting off.
Right, and sometimes it's just realizing the situation is totally out of your control, like the weather, and you just have to ride out the storm. But you can't just stick a garden hose in it and pretend you fixed it.
Which leads us to the third step. Heal. Because even after you deal with the immediate problem, the bites still itch. The damage is done.
Healing is the recovery phase. And he uses another really poignant story here about a boy and a fence.
Okay.
This one really stuck with me. A father tells his son, who has a really bad temper, that every single time he gets angry, he has to go into the backyard and hammer a nail into their wooden fence.
So a physical manifestation of his anger. I like that.
Right. So the boy, in the first few weeks, hammers in dozens and dozens of nails. But over time, the sheer physical effort of hammering helps him learn to control his anger. He starts hammering fewer and fewer nails.
Until he stops completely.
Yep. Then the father says, okay, great. Now for every day that you hold your temper, I want you to go and pull one nail out.
And eventually, all the nails are gone.
All the nails are gone. The boy's proud. But the father takes him out to the fence and just points at it, and he says, the nails are gone. But look at the holes.
The holes are still there. The wood is scarred.
And that's the reality of emotional impact. We can pull the nail out, we can apologize, we can resolve the conflict, we can leave the toxic job, but the psychological impact, the scar, it remains. Healing is about acknowledging that the holes are there and giving them time to weather over.
It's not an overnight fix. It's a process.
He also mentions the research of James Pennebaker here, the idea that writing down your emotions, journaling, is a powerful way to accelerate that healing process.
Oh, Pennebaker's work is fascinating. It basically shows that moving a trauma from this chaotic, looping story in your head onto a structured page, it actually helps the brain organize the experience.
It's more than just organizing, isn't it? It has physical effects.
It does. It can physically improve your immune system and your overall well-being. It's like you're sanding down the rough edges of those holes in the fence.
Now, before we move on from this, I have to mention one more concept he brings up. It's the muscular monk.
A muscular monk.
Yeah. I think this will really resonate with anyone who feels like they're somehow weak for feeling overwhelmed when others seem fine.
I think that's most of us at some point.
So Das describes watching this American monk who was visiting the ashram. This guy was huge, built like a linebacker, worked on a farm all day.
A very different kind of monk.
Very. So Das watches him eat dinner one night. Das is eating his usual monk portion, 1 or 2 chapatis, a little rice. He watches this guy eat 1, 2, 5, 10, 15 chapatis.
15.
And then after 15 chapatis, he asks for a huge amount of rice.
That is a staggering amount of carbohydrates. I mean, wow.
Das is just sitting there thinking, if I ate even half of that, I would explode.
No.
But this guy stays incredibly fit because his physical metabolism is just through the roof. He burns it all off.
And this is an analogy for
mental metabolism.
That's brilliant. Just as we all have a basal metabolic rate for food, we have a different capacity for processing stress and emotional load.
Exactly. And we're always doing it, aren't we? We look at other people and think, Why is she handling this crisis so well while I'm completely falling apart? We're in the exact same situation.
Well, maybe she has a higher mental metabolism right now. Maybe she's been training in the mental gym for longer than you have.
And the takeaway isn't to feel bad about your lower metabolism. It's to respect your current limits while you work to improve them. You don't walk into a gym for the first time and try to bench press 300 pounds just because the person next to you is doing it.
You'd hurt yourself. You have to build up to it.
Okay, so we've inspected our hull. We know how to start repairing the cracks. But what about the noise inside the ship? The constant, relentless chatter.
Yes. The passengers in the ship that will not shut up.
This brings us to section 2, the restless mind. And Des dives right into this with a discussion on FOMO, the fear of missing out. He tells a story about an airplane seat that I think every single traveler can relate to.
I'm ready for this.
So he's flying economy, but he gets lucky. He manages to snag the emergency exit seat.
Oh, the jackpot. The holy grail of economy travel.
Yeah.
Unlimited legroom.
He's feeling like the king of the world. He stretches his legs all the way out. He's looking back at the poor souls in the standard rows with a sense of pity. He is winning at life.
I know that feeling well.
But then the plane takes off, and two things become immediately apparent. First, he realizes the exit row is right next to the toilets.
Oh no, the high traffic zone.
The smell, the constant deafening whoosh of the vacuum flush every 3 minutes. And second, because it's an exit row, the seat doesn't recline, not 1 inch.
So he's sitting bolt upright, smelling the lavatory, while everyone he was just pitying is reclining and sleeping peacefully.
The dream seat has become a nightmare, but that's not even the kicker.
It gets worse.
Oh yeah. He decides to stretch his legs and he walks up the aisle. And he sees the little curtain to business class is slightly open. He can't resist. He peeks through.
A very dangerous move. Never peek behind the curtain.
He sees the live flatbeds, the champagne flutes, the fancy noise-canceling headphones. And in that instant, his extra legroom, which he was so proud of just 10 minutes ago, feels like absolute garbage.
It's worthless now.
He even tries to sneak in to use their nicer bathroom, and the flight attendant just shuts him down. Sorry, sir, this is for business class passengers only. He has to do the walk of shame back to his upright toilet seat.
And his whole experience is ruined. Not by the seat itself, but by the knowledge that a better seat exists just a few feet away.
That's it. He starts comparing. Business class implies he's losing. But then he has this realization. The business class guy is probably envious of the person in first class. And the person in first class is envious of the guy who owns the private jet.
It never ends. He calls it the missing syndrome. The mind is just conditioned to constantly look for what is missing rather than what is present.
Comparison is the thief of joy. It's an old saying, but it's so true.
So what's the solution? How do you stop this?
He offers this beautiful little story called The Coffee in the Cup. Imagine a professor offers coffee to his students after a class. He brings out a tray with all sorts of different cups. Beautiful crystal goblets, simple ceramic mugs, cheap plastic cups, some chipped, some with gold rims.
And naturally, everyone scrambles for the crystal and the gold-rimmed cups.
Of course, no one wants the chipped plastic one, and the students who get the plastic cups are visibly bummed out. They're eyeing the crystal cups with envy.
They're focused on the cup.
Totally. The professor waits for them all to settle down, and he says, "You're all looking at the cups, but the coffee is the same in all of them."
Oof. That's profound.
The cup is your job title, your house, your car, your social status. The coffee is your life, the actual experience of being alive. The quality of the coffee doesn't change based on the container it's in.
But we are so obsessed with the container, we forget to even taste the drink.
We spend our whole lives trying to upgrade the cup and forget to enjoy the coffee. And social media just pours gasoline on that fire. Das calls it the slot machine effect.
The endless scroll for that next dopamine hit.
Right. We're constantly comparing our messy, boring, behind-the-scenes footage with everyone else's perfectly curated highlight reel.
So knowing we shouldn't compare is one thing, but actually stopping the mind from doing it is a whole other ballgame.
This is where Das personifies the mind. He calls it Joshua.
Who's Joshua?
Joshua is a kid Das saw once at Heathrow Airport. And this kid was an absolute terror. Screaming, running away from his parents, hiding under the benches at immigration. The parents were frantic, sweating, apologizing to everyone in sight.
We have all been on a flight or in a store with a Joshua.
Das says, "Your mind is Joshua. It's a restless, hyperactive toddler. It never sleeps. It's always running off into what-if scenarios. It throws tantrums. It demands your attention constantly."
So how do you parent the Joshua in your head? You can't just put it in a timeout.
He offers 4 practical strategies. The first one is simply neglect.
Like ignoring a tantrum.
Exactly. If a toddler is screaming just to get a reaction, and you give them that reaction, you reinforce the behavior. You teach them that screaming works. If your mind is screaming negative nonsense at you, you're going to fail. Everyone thinks you're an idiot. And you start engaging with it. You start arguing with it. You're just feeding the tantrum.
So you just let it scream.
You treat it like background noise. Let it scream while you keep typing your email. Eventually, it realizes it's not getting the attention it wants, and it tires itself out.
That requires a lot of discipline. What's the next one?
Note it down. This is for the Joshua that loves to wake you up at 2 in the morning.
Ah, the 2 a.m. urgent notifications from your brain.
Yes. The mind starts nagging. We need to pay the electric bill. Don't forget to email the client. What about that weird noise the car was making?
None of which you can do anything about at 2 a.m.
So you keep a notepad by your bed and you write it down. You basically tell the toddler, okay, I heard you. It's important. I've written it on the list. We will deal with it tomorrow.
And that actually works.
Often, yeah. The mind accepts that the data has been saved externally, and it lets you go back to sleep. It offloads the cognitive burden.
I like that. Okay, what's third?
Third is negotiate. He calls it the cheat meal approach to focus.
You bribe the toddler.
You absolutely bribe the toddler. You tell your mind, look, Joshua, I know you want to scroll through Instagram, but we are going to focus on this boring spreadsheet for the next 45 minutes. If we do that without distraction, then we can watch 20 minutes of stupid YouTube videos.
You give it a reward to look forward to.
Exactly. And the fourth and final strategy.
Neutral observation. This is the temple window analogy.
A classic mindfulness technique.
It is. Imagine you're sitting inside a quiet temple, looking out a window onto a busy street. You see people passing by. Some are attractive, some are scary looking, some are just weird.
You just watch them go.
Right. You don't open the window and invite every single stranger in for tea and a chat. That would be insane.
And your thoughts are the strangers on the street.
Precisely. You observe them as they pass through your awareness. There's a thought about work, there's a worry about money. But you don't engage. You don't invite them in. You just let them pass by.
Okay, so we've wrangled the toddler. But what about when things get heavier? When it's not just chatter, but a storm? This moves us into section 3. The heavy lifting, anxiety and depression.
This is where it gets really serious.
It does. And Dus is incredibly open here. He talks about his own experiences, which I found so refreshing for a monk. You kind of expect them to be zen and unflappable all the time.
But he's human.
He is. He shares the story about going skydiving that is just pure panic.
A monk skydiving. That's an amazing image.
Apparently he tried it, and the night before the jump, he is utterly terrified. The what-if spiral kicks in hard. What if the chute fails? What if I hit a bird on the way down? What if I have a heart attack in midair?
That spiral is the very definition of anxiety. It just spins faster and faster until you're completely paralyzed by fear.
But he introduces this really cool concept called anxiety reappraisal, and it's based on actual research from Harvard by a woman named Alison Wood Brooks.
Okay, what is it?
It turns out that physiologically, the body's response to anxiety and its response to excitement are almost identical.
High heart rate, cortisol spike, sweaty palms, you feel hyper alert.
Exactly. The physical sensations are the same. The body doesn't actually know the difference. It's the mind, our brain, that puts a label on it. It labels it fear or it labels it fun.
So the advice isn't to calm down.
No, because trying to calm down when your heart is pounding out of your chest is almost impossible. It's like trying to stop a moving train with your bare hands.
So what do you do instead?
You just relabel the feeling. You tell yourself, I am excited. You reframe the threat as an opportunity. You say, my body isn't panicking. It's just revving the engine for a big performance.
You're surfing the wave of energy instead of trying to fight it.
Exactly. But sometimes the anxiety isn't about something fun like a jump. He tells a much darker story about a fellow monk, a man named Paresh, who had a seizure right in front of him.
Oh, wow.
And he froze. He had no idea what to do. Afterwards, Paresh was fine, but the event sent Das into a spiral of severe health anxiety.
What ifs came back?
With a vengeance. What if that happens to me? What if I'm helpless? What if I'm all alone when it happens?
And this is where the story gets really important, I think. Yeah. Because here he is, a monk, with all these spiritual tools at his disposal, and he couldn't meditate the anxiety away.
He tried. He prayed harder. He chanted more. He did all the things he was supposed to do. Nothing worked. It was affecting his sleep, his work. He said he felt like he was hiding a jackal in his coat.
The jackal story, what's that?
It's an old fable about a boy who steals a fox, or in some versions, a jackal, and he hides it under his tunic to avoid getting caught. But the animal starts biting his stomach, tearing him up inside.
But he refuses to show it because of the shame of being caught.
Right, and he eventually collapses from the wounds. Das realized that's what he was doing. Hiding his anxiety, pretending to be the perfect monk, was hurting him more than the anxiety itself.
The cover-up was worse than the crime. So what did he do?
He went to a psychiatrist.
That is such a significant admission. Because there's often this stigma, especially in spiritual or self-help communities, that if you're enlightened enough or you do the work, you shouldn't need therapy or medication.
Exactly, but Das just shatters that stigma. He went to see a Dr. Patel, a psychiatrist who, get this, actually used to attend Das's own lectures.
Talk about a slice of humble pie.
The big one. But it worked. He realized he had a medical problem that required professional medical tools to fix.
It just reinforces the idea that mental health is health, period. You wouldn't try to pray away a broken leg, you'd go to a doctor.
And he applies a very similar practical logic to depression. He uses what he calls the pigeon analogy.
I am very curious about this one.
He asks a room full of students a question. Do you count the number of birds that fly over your house every day? And of course, no one does.
They're just background noise. They come and go.
Right. Then he asks, but what if a pigeon flies into your house through an open window and builds a nest on your sofa? Do you notice that?
You would definitely notice that. That's a problem.
Negative thoughts are the birds flying over. Everyone has them. I'm stupid. This sucks. I can't do this. They fly by all day long. Depression is when the bird comes inside and builds a nest.
It takes up residence. It's no longer a passing thought. It's a permanent fixture in your living room.
That is such a crucial distinction. Sadness usually has a clear cause, a loss, a failure. You can point to it. Depression can be much more vague. It's a loss of self-worth. It's a feeling of emptiness. It's the bird nesting in your head.
And you can't just tell someone with a nest in their head to cheer up.
No. He tells the story of Ajay, a young man with this incredibly abusive, regimented father. Ajay suppressed his anger for his entire childhood, and eventually that anger turned inward and became depression. The solution wasn't simple. It required a multi-pronged approach. Listen, identify, empower, and yes, professional medical help when needed.
And diet.
Yes.
He explicitly mentions caffeine's role in all this.
Oh, yeah, he's very strict about that. No coffee after noon.
It makes perfect sense. Sleep is the absolute foundation of mental health.
Yeah.
Caffeine has a really long half-life. If you wreck your sleep, you're basically taking a sledgehammer to your own rivets.
Okay, now we're heading into our final section, and it might be the trickiest, the weight of others, guilt and toxic relationships.
This is often the hardest part. We can sort of control ourselves to a degree, but we can't control the cargo we carry from the past or the other ships in the sea.
And Das gets extremely personal here. He talks about his relationship with his father. His dad was a chain smoker. And Das, as a young, idealistic man and eventually a monk, he hated it. He was convinced it was killing his father.
So he nagged him about it.
Constantly. He fought with him. And when that didn't work, he eventually gave him the silent treatment.
The silent treatment is such a brutal weapon.
For 2 years, he stopped speaking to his own father to teach him a lesson.
That is a heavy, heavy burden to look back on.
It gets heavier. His father eventually got sick with Parkinson's. Das was away in London giving a series of lectures, and his father, who missed him, asked for recordings of his talks.
A peace offering in a way.
Das thought, okay, this is it. I'll bring the recordings with me when I fly back to India. We'll finally reconcile. He'll see that I've done good with my life.
I have a very bad feeling about where this is going.
He lands in Mumbai, turns on his phone, and there's a message from his mother. His father had passed away while his flight was in the air.
Oh, wow. No.
So there he is, rushing to the funeral, clutching this little pen drive full of lectures for a man who can no longer hear them. He's just consumed by this immense guilt.
The guilt of ego.
Totally. He realized in that moment that apologizing isn't about admitting you were wrong about the smoking. It's about valuing the relationship more than your desperate need to be right.
And that's a devastating lesson to have to learn too late.
He places the pen drive in his father's hands at the funeral. It's just a heartbreaking image. But this experience leads him to really analyze the mechanics of guilt. He distinguishes between reasonable and unreasonable guilt.
Right. Reasonable guilt is actually functional. It's a signal. It says, you made a mistake, go fix it. If you broke a window, you fix the window. If you hurt someone, you apologize. It's about active repentance.
But unreasonable guilt, that's when you feel bad for things that are completely out of your control. And he uses a great math analogy here. Constants versus variables.
Like pi versus x in an equation.
Exactly. Pi is a constant. It's 3.14 and so on. You can't change it. X is a variable. It's the thing you can solve for. In life, death is a constant. Other people's actions are constants. You can't solve the equation of your life by trying to change pi.
You can only solve for x your own response, your own actions.
Das had to accept that his father's choices and his death were constants in the equation. His variable, the only thing he could control, was how he lived moving forward, learning from that silence to never let his ego block love again.
And the funeral story? It doesn't even end there, does it? It's another layer.
No. In this part, this is where my jaw just hit the floor. So, Das is at his own father's funeral. He's a grieving son. He's dealing with this massive guilt. And a community leader gets up to give a eulogy.
Okay.
And this man points directly at Das in front of the entire gathering of mourners and says this man would have lived longer if his son hadn't caused him so much anguish by becoming a monk.
No. At the funeral.
Yeah.
He heckled him at his own father's funeral.
He blamed him for his father's death
in
public on one of the worst days of his life.
That is the absolute definition of toxic behavior.
Yeah.
That is intentionally malicious.
Truly. Das just had to sit there and take it. He didn't react. But he talks about how, years later, he had to face this same man again at a lecture he was giving, and the challenge of maintaining his composure.
And this is where his framework on toxicity is so practical. He classifies it into 3 types: situational, habitual, and intentional.
Right. Situational is just, someone's having a bad day, they snap at you in traffic. The solution there is empathy, you let it go.
Habitual is people who don't even realize they're doing it. They're just negative by nature. The solution there is to try and help them, or if not, just limit your time with them.
But intentional, that's the funeral guy. That's someone who is manipulative, self-centered, and is actively trying to hurt you.
And for that, you need boundaries.
Strong ones.
He uses the cricket analogy.
Which, in India, is basically like using a religious analogy. Cricket is everything.
It is. In cricket, there's a boundary rope around the field. If the ball crosses that rope, it counts for a certain number of runs. Das says we all need a boundary rope for our minds. We get to decide what crosses into our inner field and what has to stay out.
But how do you do that in practice? It's hard to just ignore someone who is screaming at you. He tells one last story for this. The glass of water story. An employee goes to HR and wants to quit because the office is just too toxic. Gossip, politics, backstabbing, the whole thing.
A familiar story for many.
The HR manager says, okay, I understand, but before you quit, I want you to do one thing for me. Walk around the entire office 3 times, holding a full glass of water. And you cannot spill a single drop.
Strange request, but okay. The employee does it.
He comes back to the HR office, sweating a little, totally focused. The manager asks him, okay, while you were walking, did you hear any gossip? Did you see anyone rolling their eyes at you?
And the employee says?
He says, no, I didn't notice anything. I was too focused on not spilling the water.
That's the secret. He calls it vibrating higher. When you are so hyper-focused on your own growth, your own purpose, your personal glass of water, the toxicity around you just fades into the background.
You don't have the mental bandwidth to engage with it anymore. You're too busy carrying your own water.
What a powerful way to live. You're not ignoring the world, but you're prioritizing your own stability and your own path above the noise.
So we've surveyed the ship. We've looked at the emotions, the internal chatter, the storms of anxiety, and the toxic waves crashing against the hull.
It's a lot to take in. But if we boil it all down, the core message seems to be, you are the captain of your ship.
You are the captain. You can't control the ocean. You can't stop all the icebergs. But you can inspect your rivets. You can maintain your hull.
We've learned that we aren't robots like Sophia. We have to feel, deal, and heal our emotions.
And we've learned that our mind is a toddler named Joshua who needs negotiation and discipline, not just constant indulgence.
We've learned to reframe anxiety as excitement and to distinguish the birds just flying over our heads from the ones that are trying to build a nest.
And we've learned to hold our own glass of water steady no matter who is heckling us from the sidelines. It's a comprehensive toolkit for resilience.
It really is.
I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. Des mentions this analogy near the end of the book, the passenger versus the driver.
Go on.
When you're a passenger in a car, you can do whatever you want. You can sleep, you can look out the window, you can be distracted, check your phone. but you have zero control over where the car is going.
The driver, on the other hand, must be focused. The driver has the responsibility, but the driver also has the wheel.
That's the trade-off. Responsibility in exchange for control. And a lot of us, he argues, treat our minds like we're passengers. We let our emotions drive. We let our circumstances drive. We just sit in the back seat and complain about the route.
So the challenge is, are you ready to take the wheel?
That is the question. Are you the passenger in your own life, or are you the driver?
And you don't have to become a Formula One racer overnight.
Yeah.
Just putting your hands on the wheel is the first step.
Exactly. Pick one tool we talked about today, just one. Maybe it's the note it down method when you can't sleep. Maybe it's trying the anxiety reappraisal trick before a big meeting.
Or maybe it's just taking a moment to enjoy your coffee tomorrow morning and completely forgetting about what kind of cup it's in. Try one small thing this week.
And see if it helps keep the water out of the shit. Thanks for diving deep with us. Keep those rivets strong.
Safe sailing.